How's it going, guys? Rhino here, and here comes the long-awaited video on taxes. It's just a general video on taxes that I want to talk about a few different topics. I sent out a tweet asking for if we got 10 retweets if we do the video, and we got way more than 10 retweets, so that's awesome seeing that support, and I really appreciate the support on Twitter. Any sort of retweets and likes are really helpful on Twitter, as it spreads the ideas around more and really teaches people and spreads correct information, because there's a lot of fake information going around about everything nowadays, especially related to taxes, related to this tax reform. And so any sort of retweet, any sort of like really helps in preventing false information from going out. So thank you guys for that support. Once again, my Twitter is TheZRhino2. With that being said, I'm also doing a $100 giveaway on my main channel for Christmas. Happy holidays, by the way. Merry Christmas. I had a great Christmas. That's when I got this awesome camera that will hopefully allow me to record videos more often. We'll see. But basically, like I said, I'm doing a $100 giveaway on my main channel. So just go over to my main channel. It's TheZRhino. So take off the 2 from my my channel, and you'll find my channel doing a $100 giveaway, most recent video, one of my most recent videos, and anyone can enter. I urge all of you guys to. I'm not doing a separate giveaway here this time, though. So thank you guys once again for all the great support. Let me start off by saying that this tax reform, although a step in the right direction, is far from perfect. It's not nearly enough. Taxes need to be lowered across the board. Everyone is overtaxed. From the poor to the super wealthy, everyone is horribly overtaxed, and it's for some reason accepted in our society. Personally, I'm someone who believes in what I call a progressive flat tax system, which sounds kind of weird, but it's essentially where you pay a flat tax of 10 or 15%, somewhere in there, a low but fair percentage that everyone pays no matter how much income you earn, to be the most fair. But also, if you're under a certain threshold, you don't pay any taxes at all, which would force it to be a progressive tax system then, because if you earn below a certain amount, you don't pay any taxes. If you're above a certain amount, you pay taxes. And there would have to be some wiggle room in there, because there would be a cutoff point where if you started earning into the amount where you have to pay taxes, then you'd actually earn less, because then your amount would be taxed. So it'd have to be, 10 to 15% after that original certain amount. And that set amount would be obviously something that would be discussed, not something that I care that much about, but it should be a pretty good amount. But I believe everyone, literally everyone, is overtaxed, from the rich to the poor. For some reason, people have been thinking that I'm favoring the rich. I'm favoring everybody. Everybody's overtaxed, but what has been economically proven is that when you tax the rich less, more money goes through the economy does better, which means more money, more jobs, more everything for the middle and working class, which is exactly what you need. So that's why I kind of focus on the wealthy, but everyone deserves tax cuts. The middle class, the working class, the lower class, everybody pays way too much in taxes. So I recently had someone tweet me a picture. This is a liberal who doesn't understand taxes, that says, basically talking about how I hate the middle class and poor because I support this type of tax reform. And it's a picture that says, House tax bill overwhelmingly skewed to the right, Joint Committee on Taxation estimates show. And so it shows roughly the percentage that is benefiting from this. And so above 1 million is like a huge percentage. And then when you get down to like 10K to 30K, it's like barely anything. It's 0.1%, 0.2%. And so you're like, wow, that's a ridiculously low amount. Until you realize that those people already basically pay no taxes or no taxes at all. So how can they can't get a benefit from tax reform if they don't pay any taxes? So you can already tell this is a biased picture because they included that amount. That amount should not be included because they pay either little taxes or no taxes. So any gain they would get, any benefits they'd get would be zero or a very small percentage. That makes sense. But then also in our marginal tax system, or a progressive marginal tax system, the wealthy, especially people who earn above the top threshold, are already paying way too much. So everyone's overtaxed, but the wealthy, the super wealthy, are unbelievably overtaxed. The more rich you get, the more you're overtaxed. And so this makes sense because the rich are already way overtaxed. They have no reason being this overtaxed, and so they deserve to have the most percentage benefit from this, as well as, not to mention the fact that the wealthy pay over, I mean, it depends on how you define wealthy, but the numbers that I was seeing, wealthy pay over 80% of all income taxes, So if there was a 2% decrease in tax rates across the board, then the overwhelming majority of the benefit would go towards the rich because they already pay 80% of the income taxes. So even though it's a flat rate change, everybody's getting the same amount, the rich would overwhelmingly benefit from that. And so, this is another reason why these people don't understand taxes, is that's how it works. When the rich already pay that high of a percentage of the taxes, any sort of decrease is going to be gargantuan in comparison because they already pay that overwhelmingly large amount of taxes. So what happens when the rich and corporations get tax cuts? Well, it's been studied. My accounting professor actually is a research professor. Most are at my university. And one of the things that he researched is this very thing. What do companies do when they have more money, specifically from tax cuts? And so liberals think, oh, they give it to CEOs and other executives so that they could buy more Lamborghinis and have a larger paycheck. Is that true? Maybe for some companies, but for the overwhelming majority of companies, no. The overwhelming majority of companies offer bonuses, more jobs, they invest, which obviously causes economic growth, which in the end is the ultimate benefit from lowering taxes, is that the economy flourishes. But that's ignored because we need to tax the rich more because we need to, for some reason, take money they already earned. They earned that money, but we deserve taking from it. They don't deserve that money. And I also hear, what happens when everyone gets taxed more? So what liberals want to jack up tax rates on everybody, but specifically the wealthy. Well, what happens then? Well, less jobs because they need to save more of their own money because they're paying a ridiculously large amount in taxes. They'll invest less, which means less economic growth. And more importantly, this is something to keep in mind. What happens when there's a downturn in the economy? I almost said economy. That would have been weird. What happens when there's a downturn in the economy? Who's hit by it the worst? Is it the wealthy who do have some money to help them get through the tough times? Or is it the working poor? It's the working poor because they lose jobs because the wealthy can't pay for these extra jobs. And so they need to cut back on how many people they're paying. And so the poor, the working poor and the middle class are the ones who are most hurt by an economy downturn like that, which is exactly what happens when you raise taxes. Liberals want to raise taxes. It follows that, most liberals don't understand economics and taxes, but that's okay. That's exactly what this video is essentially about. And so what I hear is, so why does this billionaire, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, etc., pay an 18% tax rate when I pay a 25% tax rate? Well, so here's the difference between a marginal rate and an effective tax rate. So a marginal tax rate is the tax bracket that you qualify for because of your income, means that for every extra dollar you'll pay, if you're in a certain bracket, you'll pay 25%. So for every dollar you pay, you'll pay a nice shiny quarter to the government from every extra dollar until you hit in the next bracket. That's what a marginal tax rate is. It's how much you pay on the next dollar. That's what marginal means. How much do you pay on that next dollar of earned income? And so you fit into that tax bracket. And so theoretically, a billionaire like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates will fit into a tax rate of 39.6 or 40% tax rate, the highest tax bracket. But there's something you need to realize, and that's something, the rate you're looking at is the effective tax rate, which is the effective tax rate of which you're paying, which the effective tax rate for anyone who knows anything about finance, investing, anything like that, is always going to be lower than your marginal rate because people take advantage of lower tax rates. Because, there's things like long-term capital gains, which are taxed at a significantly lower percentage, especially if you are in the 40% tax bracket. And so you shift your revenue towards long-term capital gains, so that way you pay a lower percentage because that's already taxed on the corporate level. So it's going to cost a lot of money there. And if you were to tax it again at the same rate on the individual level, then the tax rate would be so high, there would be no benefit from doing it. It would actually de-incentivize investing, which would also hurt the economy, which kind of, I think you can see a point that we're going back to. And so smart people and wealthy people shift their income to areas that are pay a lower tax rate, or things like interest on municipal bonds, which pays no tax at all. There are benefits, and when you understand taxes, you're able to take advantage of this. You're also able to take advantage of itemizing deductions to maximize the amount of deductions you can take, especially if you run a business or something that allows you to deduct a shit ton of itemized deductions, thus reducing the amount of taxable income that you have. Well, reducing the amount of taxable income you have to pay compared to your gross income. And it's your the amount you pay, your taxable income times your tax rate divided by your gross income to get your effective tax rate. So you can see how much you're paying on your gross income. And so a lower tax rate for your effective tax rate is a good thing. So why do liberals so strongly push for insanely high marginal tax rates for the rich, despite all of this? Well, for the most part, they hate people having large sums of money. It's unfair to them, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of them worked hard for their money, did things fairly, like Warren Buffett, who didn't scam anyone in his life. He earned his billions of dollars because he was smart. He understood finance, understood the economy, understood the stock market, understood that he can buy these companies, and understood that they were undervalued. So that way, when they came up to value, he would earn an enormous profit. They don't like that. They don't like that he has a lot of money. They see that as unfair, despite the fact that in a capitalistic society, those who are smarter and work harder typically earn more, especially in a case like that. Someone who has some luck, but a lot of knowledge in finance, who did the research and work himself. Apparently, that's unfair. They also don't understand economics. They don't understand taxes, and they typically want to stick their hands in the pockets of rich people to fund government welfare to help the poor, because apparently it's the rich's burden to pay for the poor, not the government itself. And they see it as unfair. The fact that someone like Warren Buffett can earn billions of dollars while Bob down at 7-Eleven makes $5 every month from sitting on a corner, which is actually incredibly low. Fun fact, actually, homeless people in Oregon typically make above minimum wage in Oregon from begging and earning money, and they don't pay taxes on that, which is pretty interesting. But that guy living on his own, living without a home, he's homeless, somehow is getting basically no money or barely enough money to get by, and a lot of homeless people die. How is that fair? Well, it's called capitalism. I mean, if you look at any sort of communistic or socialist society, they fail. They never work, and people are never happy. There's still issues like this, and a capitalistic society allows for people to create their own life. There's a saying that poverty is a state of mind, and I agree with that. Whereas you don't have any say in what life you're born into. A lot of people are born into poor families. You can't do anything about that, and it's not your fault. That's not your fault at all. But it's absolutely your fault if you drop out of high school, drop out of college, or take some shitty job, or spend too much money, or don't go to college at all. All of these decisions will make it so you don't earn money. Poverty is a state of mind after a certain point. And so you are able to get out of that, especially if you pick a good degree. Go into finance or accounting. I'm accounting, and I just got a job offer in accounting that this is my first job right out of college, and it pays incredibly well. You can do that too. You don't have to be poor. And don't give me any bullshit about, college is too expensive. My girlfriend's roommate freshman year, and her friend, one of her best friends actually, is incredibly poor, ridiculously poor, and she is still going to college. Neither of her parents went to college. They're dirt poor. She's had to pave her own way ever since she was about 14 years old, even less. And then before then, her parents didn't buy her much of anything, just like food for her, and that's it. But she's still going to college. She's taking on the burden of the debt because, it's actually not as crippling as you may think originally if you know how to handle your finances, and you can pay someone to do it for you. You pick a right degree, you get paid well enough, those go away after a while. It's really not that hard, and they're not that crippling if you understand finances. So poverty is a state of mind. Liberals just don't understand this. They think that it is the rich's fault, and the rich needs to get all the poor people out of being poor, and the rich need to stop being rich in the process. But for me, who is worst of all? It's Bernie Sanders. He loves to cry about taxing the 1% and 2% more because they're so undertaxed and it's unfair. But at the same time, he preaches that we need to help small businesses. And this is purely hypocritical. It shows that he and everyone who supports raising taxes doesn't support small businesses intentionally because they know it, or they don't know how taxes work. And these are the people that we are trying to trust or allowing to trust to dictate our tax code. The people who don't understand how taxes work. Did you know that to be in the top 2% in the United States, most small business owners, well, not most, a very good percentage of small business owners fit in that category despite their take-home income being incredibly small? Do you know why? If you don't know the answer to that question, then you have no business talking about raising taxes at all. It's something called flow-through taxes. Basically, for a small business, whatever the business earns as revenue goes to the owner of the business. So my girlfriend's dad runs a clothing store. He's a sole proprietor. The revenue goes to him. So no matter what his take-home salary is, it doesn't matter. He'll be in the top marginal tax bracket. He's in the top 1%, despite his take-home income probably not even being close to the 2% level. I don't exactly know how much he takes home, but it's not a lot, and it's not it's nothing compared to being in the top 2%. But there's people who even have it worse, because there are, just because the company you own, or the business that you own, makes a lot of money, fits into that bracket, does not mean your take-home income is that much. In fact, a lot of small business owners have a take-home income of $50,000 or less, or early on, and this is ridiculous, early on, themselves are investing money, so they are taking a personal loss despite the business still making a little bit of a gain, and they're having to pay taxes. So they're losing money and having to pay taxes. Flow-through taxes, I mean, it's a broken system that personally I think we should get rid of. But if you think we need to raise the taxes on the 1% and 2%, you're hurting small businesses the most. They're the ones who are getting destroyed. You do that, you're losing jobs for working class people who work for those businesses, the people who run those businesses, and then it creates more of a almost monopoly, but not really monopoly for the big businesses. It just allows for more power for the big businesses because they can survive those taxes. And then they will have to in turn cut jobs because they're having to pay ridiculously high income taxes. The bottom line here is, don't listen to people who don't understand taxes and economics. It will hurt our economy, our poor, and this country. It's absolutely ridiculous how little people know. I mean, I have people tweeting at me on the daily about something I sent about taxes, and they send me these links to things, and they have no clue what they're fucking talking about. They don't understand economics, but they act like they do. They just think, okay, that person is rich, he should have less money, I should have more money, so I'm going to tax him, raise his taxes because it's unfair that he has that much money. If you don't understand taxes and economics, please please go to college, take some economics, learn them, and then you'll start to see why most accounting professors are fiscally conservative. Because if you have an understanding of tax, if you have an understanding of economics, but mostly if you have an understanding of tax, you're going to be pretty fiscally conservative, because you'll realize that lowering taxes boosts the economy, it creates jobs, it helps the working class, helps the poor, and that's essentially what I'm after. Like I said, this tax reform is not perfect. It's far from perfect. In fact, yes, maybe it does slightly help the rich too much compared to the other people, but it's a step in the right direction. I mean, the rich still need way bigger tax cuts, but everybody needs bigger tax cuts. And then on a side note, one last thing, fake news is going around about the bill, saying that if you're in the middle class, that after 10 years, the taxes are going to go back up on you. The tax cuts are going to fade. And so this is fake news going around to try to scare you and just show you that, like, oh, the Republicans who are lowering taxes they're in it for the rich. They're trying to hurt the middle class and the poor class. They just hate the middle class and the poor class. That's not what it means. In fact, so I was reading something about it, and it's a bunch of technical jargon, but you can look it up. There's a reason why they expire. So it's them expiring. It's not them saying, okay, well, after 10 years, the taxes are going to go back up because we want to, generate more revenue for the IRS or something. I don't know. It's not them saying that. They have to expire. And it's the same thing. It happened under Bush. Bush did some tax cuts, and actually the Obama administration extended those tax cuts. Just a heads up for all you liberals out there that Obama did extend them. That's what's going to happen in 10 years. In 10 years, whoever's in power will have the ability to either extend them or not. And likely if there's a Democrat in power, although Obama didn't do this, but if there's a Democrat in power, they're not going to extend it, which means the taxes will go back up, which will hurt the working class and the poor class. And, that's how the Democrats are, is the Democrats want to raise taxes on everybody and hurt the middle class, poor class, rich. They want to hurt everybody essentially, and our economy. But if Republicans are in power, odds are they're going to extend the tax cuts, which means they're not going to actually go back up in 10 years. So please ignore all the bullshit, the false information you're getting about about the bill. It's false. It's not true. And they're just trying to scare you. It's people who don't understand economics, people who don't understand taxes, trying to tell you about economics and taxes. That's about it for this video. I apologize for it being fairly long. Luckily, my camera worked this time. It wasn't working before, which is why it took me an extra few days to get this out to you guys. But if you guys have any questions about taxes, about anything related to taxes, anything that I said, or anything that you have a question about further, especially specifics about taxes. Number one, the IRS website actually is pretty helpful on it. It's kind of technical jargon, so it's not really layman's terms, but it's fairly helpful, so I recommend looking there. But if you post a comment asking a question that's not, disingenuous or intellectually dishonest, I'll be happy to answer it and happy to explain further something that maybe I didn't explain well, or explain something that you just don't have a great understanding of. I'm happy to do that, and I appreciate all your guys' support once again, so thank you guys for watching. Be sure to join my Discord, which will be linked in the description below. Be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a nice day.